Welcome to the Inner Reboot with Sam and Heidi, your weekly pit stop to shake off the stress, laugh at life's plot twists and recharge your mindset. Because let's be honest, transformation doesn't have to be boring or involve 75 different types of smoothie.
So grab a drink, smoothies if you must, and join us for the wins, the fails and the awkward bits, because sometimes the biggest breakthroughs start with an inner reboot and occasionally forgetting why you even walked into the room.
So why are we here? We're here to share our story. What is our story? Now let's think about this, because when I started where we were, you'd been there a little while. How long did it take us to very first have a conversation around actually, are we missing something? Are we not using our strengths and our skill set effectively in our roles or our history of roles and organisation? Wasn't long.
Yeah, it's really good. It wasn't long. All I can remember is like literally in your first week, and there was a social and we was drinking wine, and that was like I was finally like, oh my god, there's somebody here that gets it, like that I just not gets me maybe. It was probably the first time I felt like, oh, I've got a friend here. So I'd been there probably 2 months.
Yeah.
And then I just think we all sort of burrowed away for a couple of months or a month or so. Like it was sort of, you was in your first month learning. I was delivering a crazy ass project, and it feels like it's probably early January, sort of both popped up and we're like, what is this? What is going on?
Yeah, it was almost that conversation. It was the first time we'd ever talked about, are you using, I mean, we didn't position this with each other, but it was the first time we'd shared the fact that we didn't believe that we were using the right skill sets, and perhaps the role itself is what it was, but I think it was the first time that we'd figured out actually we're not leveraging the best of ourselves. And it's almost that, I think it was the first time of thinking, are we motivated in what we're doing, or can we add more value elsewhere, and actually what does that look like? And that first realisation of actually we could apply all of our skills in other areas to really help other people. And I think that's kind of where it came from.
Yeah, I think so. I think that acknowledgement of probably the value add piece more than anything, of this isn't, and for me it wasn't an acknowledgement of the role in that organisation. I think it was the acknowledgement of, oh, for a few years now, quite a long time, probably 4 or 5, I'd been I'd ended up in a place, in roles that just weren't bringing me that much joy. They weren't roles that I would have chosen to necessarily go into, because they were just the next step, or they were the next thing, and they were under the umbrella of learning and development, so it sort of made sense at the time. But I think our conversations were the first time I'd really sat back and gone, oh no, actually this isn't really quite what I want to be doing. It's not.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing how I'm adding value to individuals and seeing that like tangible jump. Like, I need to know that what I'm doing is meaningful, and I wasn't able to do that because of the roles we were doing, we were so broad and offering products and workshops and sessions that were trying to touch such a wide range of people. You actually couldn't ever get to know people specifically, or
be part of their journey. I think that's the thing. As individuals, it was never, I never felt, and I've felt for a long time like that, and I think it was, I remember I shared the story with you about the deal breaker cards that I did at a previous organisation, where I said to you, figure out your values, you have your 3 values, and then you pick one of them that becomes your deal breaker. And I said to you, mine is being able to add value, and if I can't see where I'm adding value, I don't feel motivated or engaged, and I don't feel like I'm actually doing anything productive or effective. And I think for a long time, I think because I've had varying roles that have given me different things, but it's always been bubbling in the background of like, is this what I really want? And then I think when you end up in a position where you're kind of shuffling between places and job roles, is when you get to sit back and reflect and go, actually, am I stuck? Am I genuinely stuck? And do I know where I'm going or what I'm doing? And I think that's the conundrum that I felt like I had. I felt stuck, but I didn't really know how to move forward. When we first started talking, I think it was a real benefit to me to be like, A, I'm not the only one, B, you understand what I'm saying, and C, actually, we do recognise our strengths and our skill sets, but we're just not aligning them, I think, in the right direction, you know?
Like we wasn't able to, I think, it's a really good point. Like, we was aware of them and we knew what we wanted to be doing, but for various reasons weren't able to in the way that we really wanted to. I think that's the difference as well. It's like, we probably could have used them a little bit more, and we could probably, like, you can always make it work to some extent, but if it's not, if the core, like you say, isn't your deal breaker, or it's not the thing that sets your world on fire, then it actually doesn't really matter. And I think I guess mine also come at a time of working out who I was, and realising I need certain things in order to feel that motivation as well. So I need to be able to be creative. I need to be able to run away and, like, almost, I need to be able to do quickly and proactively, and I need to be able to really connect with people and understand what their challenge is so that I can really unpick it and then create a solution, etc., etc. And that just wasn't happening, and hadn't been for a really long time. And so I think I was stuck for a really different reason. Like, I wasn't really stuck because of the roles necessarily. I think I was more stuck because I kept trying the things that should be the right thing to do next, but for some reason internally I still felt this turmoil of, like, well, why is this not right then? Why do I still feel really overwhelmed? Why do I still feel like I'm not adding value? Why do I still feel not very confident in what I'm offering? And through our conversations, and probably not that long, probably like over a month, was then the sort of realisation of, well, it's because it's just a misalignment. It all come down to a misalignment between what I need internally versus what I was able to offer and deliver.
You say, you're so polite when you say turmoil. I'm going to say sense of impending doom is what I was experiencing. I definitely, but for real,
Panic.
There were moments like, of waking up in the middle of the night and having that really weird knotted feeling in my stomach of, like, I can't do this. Like, I can't do what I'm doing.
But,
I need to change it. You know?
I don't think you'd necessarily had that before, had you? Like, that was quite a new thing. Whereas for me, I think I'd had that in the last 2 or 3 roles. And so I don't know, I think to begin with, was more like, oh, it's just, I've just got to get used to it. Like, this is a me thing. And then realising that it is a me thing, but because I didn't understand myself.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you look at other things as well. I was blaming all sorts of things. Is it my age? What's happening to my emotions and my hormones and all of this stuff? Like, actually freaking out at times, like thinking what's wrong with me, like being very aware of unhappiness, but also very unaware of what to do about it, but also really aware of thinking, but if I don't do something soon, it's going to be too late. Of, like, when we talked about, like, we just need to make the jump and make the change and make it happen, because it's, otherwise you're always in this cycle of, I know I need to do something, but I haven't got the confidence to actually make the change and do it. That was what was petrifying the most, I think, when we actually decided we're doing this and we're going to leave the corporate world and we're going to go it alone and we're going to forge a path forward. It was petrifying but exciting at the same time. So it was all positive things of, like, those feelings in your stomach of, like, oh, have I made the right decision? Is it going to work? Are we going to be able to do it? But it was all positive feelings, not negative.
I think as well there's so much wrapped up in that, isn't there? Because it was actually, I guess, a 6-month period. So from that, like, really initial realisation of the two of us wanting something different and having loads of energy and excitement about what that could be. And I don't really know what happened, because we weren't even particularly that, we weren't working really closely together. We'd probably see each other once a week and just have some random chats. And then all of a sudden, not quite sure how it happened, but I was at your house and we had a whole day planning and, like, managed to, like, probably 6 months ago, almost, like, exactly, like, work out exactly what this could look like, and just have that really creative space to allow our energy, I guess, to flow and guide us, and create what we're now putting into place and bringing to the world. But there was so much, not only the confidence. So I think for both of us it was helpful. It was something we both individually wanted to do in terms of, like, not work for corporate organisations, but neither of us wanted to do it on our own. So that was, like, a win instantly. And I think that probably drove a lot of the excitement and the ability to keep traction and keep things going. But also there's a lot of, for me, it's not just stepping out of your comfort zone, it's stepping out of everything that you believe you should be doing in terms of next steps. So like you should just now move on and get a job in a different organisation doing a different thing, or you need to take the next step up and go and take on a more senior role, or like whatever that might be. And the reality is I've done a variety of those, and it's no matter what I've changed, the feelings were still the same. So I think there was that step in terms of confidence, but there was also the what I should be doing, and then also the financial element to it as well. Like, how do you all of a sudden just go, okay, well we're just gonna do this thing, when you don't have necessarily, which I don't, the stability, financial stability that comes with it. And I think the only way we moved past that was the realisation that nothing will change if nothing will change. And we actually didn't. You can try and create things and bumble them along, but if you don't have the headspace, I think this is where we got to. We'd become so invested in what we wanted our business and our new world to be, but we didn't have the headspace because we was working full time. In order to push it along and nudge it, we sort of got to that point where it was like shit or bust, and we've got to make a decision.
Yeah, and we're only bound by our own limitations, but we forget that we're the ones that put those in place. So it's actually, if you don't change anything, nothing is going to change. So it's actually giving yourself time to reflect and accept the fact that yes, there are risks and it's going to feel a bit different and a bit weird and a bit uncomfortable. But again, those are only limitations if you allow them to be. And I think many of us get stuck in a rut because we think we can't do it, or we think that it's never going to work. And, you know, the things that are stopping us, like us saying, okay, let's move out of this guaranteed pay every month and move into an arena where we're not going to have that anymore. And yeah, it's very difficult to do, but I think if you have the confidence in yourself and understanding actually how do you navigate that, you can make it work. But I think if you don't try something, you never know. And we've always said if it doesn't work, fine, then that's absolutely fine. Yeah, and everything's a learning curve, isn't it? Though that's the thing. And I think we very often fear failure. Of course, we know we do. And very often that fear of failure is the thing that stops us all of the time doing anything, like taking a risk. And yes, some risks are bigger than others, but I think until you start taking risks, you don't actually know what you're capable of. So you can't look back in 6 months and go, I'm so pleased I did that. You know, because I've said to you many times, like my nan used to say, everything comes out in the wash. It really does, for whatever reason, whether it's good or bad, or, you know, you have to change your course of direction or whatever it might be. Everything has an eventual outcome, whatever it might be, and it's just navigating that. And I don't think we give ourselves permission or time to step back like we did when we spent that day together to go, well, here's all of this great stuff.
What could it be?
Yeah, seeing it laid out on paper and going, actually, there's a lot here. We can do something with this. That then gives you the motivation. So I think before taking any risk, I guess the advice is allow yourself time to reflect and think and scope and be creative and innovative.
Explore. And I think it's like it's that fear of failure that becomes so loud. Lots of things become really loud. And I guess also what's massively helped is we immediately have at least one cheerleader, because we've got each other doing that, and that makes such a big difference, particularly if you don't necessarily have that explicitly, or you don't have that, or you don't feel it. So I think that instantly made it easier. But I guess what it's undone for me is made me realise, and I know, like, we hear it all the time, don't we? Like, don't believe everything you see, don't believe everything you read, like all of that stuff, and particularly social media, and I get that. But it's all of these things are such baby steps. And yes, we've done them fairly quickly, and we've made like some really big steps to get to this point, and we had to make some massive leaps at the same time as well. But also the real understanding that if we don't pause and reflect, if we don't think about what we want and what we need, if we don't start with like who we are and what we want, and that's where all of this started from. This all started from a reflection that neither of us felt completely motivated, satisfied, and like we was adding value. Like, so it started with our values, it started with that inner bit. What am I trying to get to? I'm trying to get to, for so long, or for my whole like adult life, have found it really hard to do something if I don't know how to do it, or if I can't do it good enough, or I can't do it perfectly, or I can't just know that I'm going to be able to do that thing and be successful. And it's really hard to untangle that. And I guess part of doing this podcast and starting from a place of our story is also unpicking all of those things. So all of our limiting beliefs that we've gone through, that we've had, that everyone has, whether you're making a really small change or a really massive life change, those limiting beliefs are always going to be there. But how do we catch them? How do we reflect on them? How do we also acknowledge that nobody in the world is just waking up one day and going, I'm going to set up a business and then it's done? Like, how do we start to understand that we are also coming from different places and different like starting points as well? So there's an awful lot of that to unravel. And so I guess what I found really helpful is I've been able to understand myself a lot more in and amongst starting this, so we can do it from a place of what I truly, really want and need and value, rather than what I should be doing.
Yes, 100%. I think that's the bit that I've experienced the most, is listening to my inner self. What do I want? What motivates me? But also giving myself time to reflect on what my strengths are, so where I can add those bits of value that I talked about before, and what to do if it feels like it's not going right as well. Yeah. And I think exploring all of those things is so important, and it's the first time for years actually that I've given myself the space to be able to do it. And then the realisation comes a bit later once you start doing it, that actually no, you can be really creative, you can be really innovative, you can do the things that you want to do, but you have to give yourself permission to do it. And I think that's one of the massive changes that has occurred within me over the last few months, of in and around our conversations and looking at what we could offer and how our skill sets complement each other, and what strengths one has versus the other one might have an energy drain. Is so actually, how do you pick that other person up and how do you support them? It's all those things. And like you say, we have got a cheerleader each because there's two of us, so I think it makes it easier. You know, if one's feeling like their energy's drained, the other one can almost like dial up and, you know, add some support. But yeah, it's been a really interesting journey, and it feels really exciting to not only have been through it ourselves, but to approach it in a way where we're doing it because we want to do that with other people. So actually, how do we support other people? How do we get them to reflect and look inwardly and understand where their strengths lie and the value that they can add and maybe help unpick their journeys and get them to that point where they're feeling content and happy and motivated and valued, etc.
I completely agree. There's so much, like, because I think there's so much more awareness now. Like, you only have to scroll on your own personal social media. It's like there's so much. My Instagram is full of, if I let the algorithm go that way, like all of the things, like the million things I've got to do in order to like be self-aware and help myself, and like I need to be all of the, I can't remember what they call it. There's a new thing where there's like a gazillion things you have to do in order to live like your best life and be really productive and all of that stuff. And I literally am like, sometimes I get so sucked into it, but it's not even about that. It's about the really small conversations. It's about feeling heard. It's about knowing yourself a little bit better than what perhaps you did, and not trying to follow all of these things in order to live your
it's
most
a
best
minefield.
life.
I came across one of those the other day, and the first page, you know, you scroll through it and it said, follow these 20 steps for like inner happiness. And I was like, 20 steps? I've barely got time to do one. How do you unpick all of this? And also, the other thing that I know we've spoken about this before that I find really interesting, there's lots of noise, but there's not anything that actually
tells you what to do.
What to do, like how to do it. It's like, you know, have this great life and da-da-da-da. It's like, yeah, but how? Like,
well,
we're
I
very
think that's
aware.
The thing with, and particularly with us starting this and stepping out of paid employment and all of those things, for me, the biggest thing I had to overcome was, everyone says all the time, just do the thing, take the leap, do the thing, take action, like, whatever you're worried about, just do it. And it's like, yeah, but it's not as simple as just bloody doing it, is it? Like, it's not like, okay, I will just hand my notice in and then everything will fall into place. Like, it's really not that simple. But I feel like it's so easy to get wrapped up in thinking it is that simple.
There's a lot hidden on social media as well, I think. You see very much a lot of, this is where I was and this is how I am now. What they don't show you is like, the shit in the middle. Gone backwards and forwards.
Chaos.
Yeah.
And probably had
like,
months where you're like, oh God, have I got is this it now? Have I got to...
You don't see all of that stuff. It concerns me. You don't see all of that stuff. And the reason it concerns me is because obviously my own 3 children are at ages that are 3 of them. They're in their 20s. They're early. You know, they're starting their adult life. You know. They say all the time, Mum, this adulting thing is just not for me. I'd like to resign.
It's not for me.
Because, no, I'm like, great.
I don't want to do it.
I'm 48 and it isn't for me either. But I think there is, for me as a parent, I think, and now experiencing it, there's definitely a concern that there is a lot of washing over on social media of, you know, you come from here and look at the greatness that I have and this success that I'm having. There's none of these painful journeys. There's nothing being shared of, these were my failures and this is how I dealt with them. These were the challenges and this is how I dealt with them. And actually, this is how I navigated my path to get to where I am. And I think there needs to be a lot more transparency around those things for people to be able to say, I believe in that. You know, you can't just look at the old version and the new version and go, oh yeah, that I have confidence that I can do that. Because you don't see the bit in the middle.
Well, and I think the other bit that's really interesting, and I know this firsthand because I can't tell you how many Instagram pages I've set up to be like, I'm going to find a way to make money and become one of these influencers that gets paid however much, and I'm all of a sudden going to have a mansion and it'll be wonderful. Because I'm just not that person. Like, I don't know how to take a photo, I don't know how to edit a reel, I don't know how to create the content, like all of these things that just, because it's like, well, I just started talking about the thing that I was doing. Yeah, great. And for some people, that will absolutely pay off. And some of them have really quick, mega success because that's within their skill set, that's their strength, that's in their wheelhouse, they enjoy doing it, like all of those things. And I think that's the other huge misconception at the moment is because it's so visual and we see it, and because they make it seem so really easy and naturally, because to them it is. Like, I wouldn't look at a CEO of a company and be like, well, I could do that. Like, I could just decide to do that. So it's so easy to do it for YouTubers or influencers. And actually, the realisation that a shit ton of work goes into it and is really exhausting and really hard work. And so I vowed to stop creating Instagram accounts. And not ever posting on them, ever.
I'm really glad you did. The other thing, though, is thinking about what's the end game in that, actually. Because if you think about it, if the end game, and this is what's concerning, that drive towards being an influencer and having the money and the fame and all the great things, are they truly happy and are they truly doing what they want to do? Some of them, yes, probably so. But the ones that look into that from the outside that go, I'd like a bit of that, I'm going to create a page, that perhaps, like you, that aren't doing it for the right reasons. Perhaps there's a reason why it's not worked, because that's not what you're meant to be doing in the first place.
Well, no, and the reality
is you're wanting to share your story, you're wanting to help other people get unstuck and try and work through that muddly middle. So actually, doing what you were doing is you're literally diving into the muddly middle, going,
I'm making it every time. I'm never going to succeed in that space, and that is exactly what I was going to say. Like, it's because it feels like the only way, not the only way, but it feels, because it's so loud, and I really feel like, which is why we're doing what we're doing, I have some value to add, and I have people to help, and I have a story to tell, and I want to help people succeed. Ultimately, that's what we want. We want people to understand who they truly are so that they can succeed. People, teams, businesses, whatever. We also want to pull back the realities via this podcast in terms of like all of the stuff that goes on inside that you have to do, but also all of the crap that we sort of consume and listen to. So I really strongly know that I have something I want to say and that I want to get out to people, and naively, or just because of what social media is, I sort of forgot that isn't the only way to do it. And we've had this rumbling along, so this was always a priority, but there was in those moments when I'm like, oh god, that feels mega and really big, and like, I'll just set up an Instagram page. But that's not how I want to tell my voice, tell my story. That's not authentic to me. That's not, I can't even put a good picture on there, for Christ's sake, of a cup of tea. Like, that's not how I'm going to be able to do it, because also I don't want my face attached to it all of the time. Like, I don't want it to be that exposing.
Maybe the advice then to people is set up 10 Instagram accounts, don't post anything on them, delete them, and then begin your journey. That's what it needs to be.
Well, it's just, and also, but
fail
have somebody
fast. That's basically what it is. Fail really fast.
And have somebody that doesn't know on your side that keeps pulling you back to a centre and reality. because this was always going to be the better. This is always going to be the way for me to do it.
Can you remember when I went on holiday and stuff? So I set up this other Instagram page. There were moments in my head was going, oh God, good Lord, it's fine. And then just listening to you and letting you talk about it and air it, and then the next day it would be, so I've deleted that one because I don't think that's what I need to do. Just thinking, thank the Lord. But it's we laugh about it. It is failing fast. It is knowing, it's recognising what you not necessarily can't do, but what perhaps isn't the thing. It's about finding your thing, and actually that isn't your thing, and that's fine too. We've figured out this is our thing. Actually going out there and talking to people and helping them navigate their journeys and become unstuck through recognising their strengths and pulling on those and figuring out, what motivates them and where they're getting their energy from, and knowing how to dial it up to be the best versions of themselves to then start that journey of where they're going. That's the thing.
Well,
we say, well, you need to begin a journey and you need to go through these steps. We fail to realise that there's before the journey begins.
Well, and even once the journey started, like all of this social media stuff I've done in the last 3 to 6 months, when we are fully aware of what we're doing and it's fully mapped out. But I have those moments of like, I could be doing this and I could be doing that. And I think it's also, the biggest thing for me has been recognising when you're either going off track and stopping and pausing, because you could be going off track and that be the best thing ever. Or you could be going off track just because things aren't moving quick enough, or you're not quite, there's a bit of confusion, or you're a bit stuck again. And that's what's been amazing, is because every time I'm starting to veer off track, you're really quickly and able to go, Heidi, hello, like we're doing this thing over here, just like rein it in. And that's also about finding your people too. Yes,
there's something about, we've talked about this before, there's something about being your own cheerleader, but finding your village. And I think it's so important to recognise who your cheerleaders are really, really early on, and then building your village around that, because that's the thing. And it's, they always say, like, if you want to achieve something, tell like 10 people, because then you're holding yourself accountable by taking them on that journey with you. And there is proof in the pudding that of actually, I want to do this great thing, and it could be, I want to climb Mount Everest in 3 years' time, and I'm going to start training now. Telling people about having cheerleaders and building a village around you is so important, because it's almost the momentum that keeps you ticking along. In those moments where you feel like you're failing and you can't do it, you've got people to kind of push you back up again and go, yeah, you actually can do this. I think that's really important. There's too many times when people try to take journeys on their own, and it is your own individual journey, we know that, but
you don't have to do it alone.
And you don't have to do it alone,
And I think that's the other thing. It's really easy to feel like people are, or they do, or they're just like these miracle people, and 9 times out of 10, there's other people around them. They can't possibly be doing it.
Some of it is definitely influential in terms of social media, because it seems very easy on the outside that people achieve these things very quickly, and there were no bumps in the road and no potholes, nothing that stopped them. So very often we don't feel confident to be vulnerable enough to go, well, I'm doing this thing, but actually it's failing.
This has happened. I have no idea what the hell's going on.
And it's failing, and I don't know what I'm doing. It's almost like we have to be perfection immediately.
The only ways we've gotten around that is every so often the craze will come back around and they'll be like, just so you know, it's like Insta versus reality or whatever, or they'll like show a clip of like what they're taking a picture of, and then the reality of their house. And actually, like, that's fine, that's great. And that is definitely needed, and there is a place for that. But there's also the bit we don't see is, as it's happening, not visually the Insta versus reality, because I think that's one thing, but the reality of it, like in terms of the actions and the spiralling and the gazillion things that you've had to do to make this one tiny thing happen. I think it's all of that sort of stuff that's missing.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Which we have figured out, and are figuring out, and continue to figure out.
So come on our journey with us while we do that.
Follow along amongst all of the chaos.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that is like, there's so much to unpick, and ultimately, I guess for anybody listening, wondering what this is, so this is that. It's exactly that. We're unpicking our own stuff at the same time as helping others, and questioning, I guess, a lot of the things that we take not for granted, but we take as good. And that perfectionism thing, particularly in the neurodivergence community, is huge as well, because it's like, well, if I can't do it and I can't do it perfectly, then I don't know what I'm doing, so I can't do it because I'm a massive fraud, and so I just won't bother. And that can be really hard to overcome.
And I think giving it some airtime and talking about it as we're going along, in terms of what challenges are we facing and how do we overcome those, and our experiences, is the point of doing this podcast. Really, it's not necessarily to teach anybody any different. It's about learning how to be open and vulnerable and facing some of those challenges. And
focusing on you, like who you are, like what's important to you, all of the things that are ingrained in our data, particularly if you work in an organisation where they are supporting your development. Like there's lots of those things as well that we want to unpick in terms of like, how do you continue to develop and grow for what the business needs, but also for what you need, and how do you focus on that, and how do we demystify, debunk some of the stuff that we've just told ourselves is what we have to do, when actually in reality we don't. And all of our chaos that comes along with it. I guess our thinking process as well, which has been really interesting. And so sharing a bit of that, because I just don't think there's quite enough either.
Yeah, and actually on that point, I guess the way that we're going to run these, we'll have a topic each week, but also we want to do this because we want other people to talk about it. So actually, I guess the ask is, if you have a topic that you want us to talk about, please let us know, and we'll make that the topic of the week. But we will bring different points to the podcast and explore them and unpick them and hopefully put them back together. But any topics that anybody wants us to talk about or unpick, then yes, let us know.
Yes. Anything that helps the inner reboot, anything that helps you move one step closer to who you want to be, what you want to be, or one step closer to letting go of a load of stuff that you don't want to be. Any of that.
Take out the trash. I like that.